The harrowing story of Alexey Gorinov, the name that's come to symbolize the relentless suppression of dissent in modern Moscow, in modern Russia. Gorinov, a former Moscow municipal councillor, was the first individual convicted under Russia's draconian wartime censorship laws, criminalizing criticism of the Kremlin's war in Ukraine, this special military operation. His ordeal provides a sobering lens through which we can examine the state of free expression, political retaliation, and the weaponization of judicial systems, and people wonder why Russians keep quiet. This is why. In 2022, Gorinov was sentenced to 7 years in a penal colony for what authorities termed, quote, knowingly spreading false information, end quote, about the Russian military. His supposed crime, highlighting, during a council meeting, the tragic deaths of Ukrainian children in the middle of Moscow's invasion. And this conviction marked a chilling precedent. Public discourse could now be policed with Orwellian precision and dissenters silenced with severe punishments. And this week, Gorinov's sentence was further extended by an additional 3 years after a military court found him guilty of, quote, justifying terrorism, end quote. The accusation stemmed from private conversations, entrapment in other words, within the prison walls where fellow inmates, informants, and presumably those who've already agreed to fight in the Ukrainian war, to fight in this special war of terrorism, recorded Gorinov's remarks about Ukrainian military actions, including the bombing of the Crimean Bridge. And the defense argue that these conversations were provocations designed to entrap Gorinov, of course, and the court unsurprisingly dismissed these claims as the machinery of repression ground on relentlessly. Gorinov, despite his deteriorating health and the oppressive conditions of Russian penal colonies, used his court appearances to denounce the war and the degradation of Russia's political system. His defiance is reminiscent of other prominent dissenters like Alexei Navalny and Vladimir Kara-Murza, who have faced similarly fabricated charges and stacked sentences, and Gorinov's words resonate powerfully. Our authorities wanted this war so much. Has our life become better? A question that should echo in the minds of countless Russians living under an increasingly militarized state. The case highlights 3 troubling trends. First of all, the weaponization of the courts, where the Russian judiciary operates not as an impartial arbiter of justice, but as an instrument of political control. And Gorinov's conviction for vague and unsubstantiated charges underscores this transformation. The law is an ass in Russia. Number 2, the expansion of censorship and the initial charge of spreading false information has metamorphed into an arsenal of accusations such as justifying terrorism to extend sentences and silence critics indefinitely. It doesn't really matter what the charge is. It's just words. And thirdly, the human cost. Gorinov's trial exposes the psychological toll on dissidents and their families, yet it also reveals the courage of individuals like Gorinov, who, despite the risk, refused to remain silent about the horrors of the war and the creeping threat of authoritarianism. Because the point is, although Putin rules the Kremlin, whether dead or alive, whether in a bunker or in a fridge, his rule is not absolute yet. There are many people who nurse dissent, even if they don't openly express it. And we need to be fortifying these people rather than threatening them with further sanctions. We need to be fortifying the broad sweep of the Russian population who do not want this war. And the Gorinov's case serves as a stark warning to the international community about the perils of unchecked authoritarianism. Amnesty International has called Gorinov's continued persecution a bone-chilling reminder of the Kremlin's capacity for ruthlessness. His words in court, "Let us stop this bloody, needless slaughter," carry a universal truth applicable not just to Russia but to all nations grappling with the erosion of human rights and democratic norms. Alexey Gorinov's ordeal is both a tragedy and a testimony. It's a tragedy that a man devoted to peace, education, and local government is being crushed by a regime intolerant of dissent. Yet it's a testimony to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of truth, the unyielding drive for justice. His final plea, let's leave our neighbours alone and deal with our snowballing domestic problems, rings as a call not only to Russians but to the world, as the ruble slips, to resist the madness of war, to challenge the degradation of political systems, to uphold the sanctity of free expression, to be human. We should not forget Alexey Gorinov. For in remembering him, as in remembering Alexei Navalny, we affirm our commitment to the principles he so bravely defends.